Get here, and today I'm bringing you Smith & Wesson model 629 versus the Ruger Super Red Hawk. These are both 6-shot revolvers made by Ruger and Smith & Wesson, and they both shoot 44 Magnums and 44 Specials. And these are both stainless steel. And the biggest difference of these revolvers is the Smith has a 6.5-inch barrel and the Ruger has a 7.5-inch barrel. So with that extra barrel, we might get a pinch more velocity from the Ruger. So let's start just going over the differences of each one of these revolvers. We'll go ahead and we will start with the Ruger. And we'll just go ahead with some simple functions. So first, this is just a standard double single action revolver. And to open the cylinder on this, we're gonna go ahead and push, the cylinder release button in. And that can be operated pretty easily while you're shooting the revolver and you're handling it. So there you can verify that the revolver is empty. That's a better close-up right there of your cylinder release, and you push that in. There is your round eject button right there to eject the spent cases. And that's basically it. And you'll close it up, index the cylinder, and you can work this revolver two ways. One, shoot it double action, or two, cock it and get that nice sweet single action pull. So let's go ahead and the rest of this revolver. We have adjustable sights up here. The front one is definitely slid in, so you could change the front one, if you wanted to. Put something in there, a tritium, probably a fiber optic would be a good choice for a revolver like this. And the rear sight is adjustable for elevation and for windage, which is 2 little flathead screwdrivers. The other nice thing that the Ruger Super Red Hawk has on it, it has with this extra large frame on it, is scope mounts. So all you have to do is buy a scope and rings and they will clip right onto this revolver. You don't need a base, you don't have to do any of that funny stuff. And since it's all one casting, I bet it would be probably pretty close to zero with this thing. And this is definitely optimal to mount a scope and to hunt with this revolver. So let's go ahead and we'll take a look at the Smith now. So Smith & Wesson model 629 right here. Cylinder release on a Smith, it's that right there. You just push it forward on the Smith and the cylinder rocks out. That's probably the biggest difference between these two revolvers, as far as operating them, is the Smith cylinder release pushes forward and the Ruger's you push it in. But same thing, cartridge ejection right there. Close your cylinder. You have your double action pull and then that sweet single action pull, and that works the same way as the Ruger. Also on this revolver, this front sight is pinned in there, but you could definitely change that out, put a tritium or put a fiber optic front sight in there. And the rear sight on here has the same thing. It has elevation and windage on here. And the interesting thing about the Smith revolver, you can go ahead and you can take off this rear sight. You can get a scope base for it, and you can mount rings, a base, rings, and a scope. So it has one more step than the Ruger that you have to buy a base for it. The Ruger's base is, included in the frame, and the Smith's is not. So it takes a little bit more to put a scope on the Smith. But interesting enough, I bought this revolver used, and it came with a Millet red dot scope on it. It was not my cup of tea, so I removed it. But I talked about that in my review of these guns. Also, folks, if you're interested and want more detailed information about these revolvers, I have reviews on each one already up, and just check my channel history and you'll find them up there. Let's go ahead right now and shoot a couple bullets through the chronograph and see if we get any velocity differences with either of these revolvers. I'll go ahead and I'll load 3 rounds into each revolver and see how they each do. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to take 3 shots, and for ammunition I've got 3 rounds loaded in each revolver, and these are 240 grain jacket of hollow points. These are Sierras, and they are on top of 24 grains of H110. So these are a very strong load. They're not max. Max per Hornady is 24.5 grains, but it'll give us a good idea of a velocity difference we'll get with both these revolvers. We've got, we'll go ahead and we'll shoot 3 rounds off of each, and we'll see what kind of velocity differences, if any, we get of these revolvers. (1,276 feet per second). 1,292 feet per second. 1,318 feet per second. So we had one that was loaded a little hotter. So now we got the Super Red Hawk here with the same 3 rounds in it. We'll go ahead and we'll see what our difference is here. (1,389 feet per second). 1,348 feet per second. 1,390 feet per second. Yeah, we definitely have. Yeah, I'll let you do the math, folks. Yeah, so that was a little more than I expected. Shoot, you know, with the velocity differences, it looks like the Smith. We definitely had one that was a little higher, maybe 2 weak ones, but you could definitely see, you know, we could call the Smith right around, you know, 1,300 feet per second, maybe the high 1,200s with that load. And, you know, the Ruger got us a little bit more. You know, that extra inch of barrel on the Ruger, you know, translated to at least 100 feet per second faster, maybe as much as 125 feet per second faster. So, you know, with that, I was surprised. You know, I figured 6.5 inches of barrel length on the Smith was enough, you know, to really get that 44 Magnum moving, but we definitely got, you know, and that's, you know, for basic target or plinking or, you know, even some, up to some large game hunting, that would be fine, you know, 240 grain bullet, you know, at those 1,300 feet per second. But, you know, if you need a max hunting revolver, you know, there's nothing, you know, that really beats barrel length out of these things. And it definitely just proved it right there that, you know, if you need that maximum velocity, that you definitely the extra barrel length that they make these things. And I also believe that they make these, you can get these in even longer barrel configurations. Both of these, I know you can get the Smith in an 8 3/8, and you can get the Ruger something bigger, maybe it's 10 inches. I can't remember exactly, but I know that both of these come with longer barrels and shorter barrels, but also that'll go the other way if you buy these with shorter barrels. And to me, I don't get these huge revolvers. They're easier to carry, but in these 2-inch barrel lengths for these monster cartridges like 454 Casull, you're just going to give up so much more velocity. And, you know, you might be better off carrying a 44 Magnum with a 4-inch barrel than you are carrying a 454 Casull with a 2-inch barrel. Or even like these 460s and 500s with these super short barrels. You know, you're better off probably going down a frame size for a revolver and, you know, shooting a less powerful cartridge with a little more barrel on it. You know, 3 and 4-inch barrels are still easy to carry. And, you know, you're just not going to give up so much velocity. I mean, you're still going to have all that nasty recoil, and it'll be worse with less barrel. So let's go ahead and talk about something else that was interesting. Shooting both these rounds out of both these revolvers, the Smith & Wesson recoils lighter. And there's less steel on this revolver than there is in the Ruger. I mean, if you look at both of these carefully, the Ruger's heavier built. There's more steel on the Ruger than there is on the Smith & Wesson. The Smith & Wesson is more finely crafted. It's smoother, its machining is better, its edges are all been deburred, and it's just a nicer piece of steel, machined to a much higher tolerances than the Ruger Super Red Hawk. The Ruger Super Red Hawk still a wonderful revolver, but it's just a little more utilitarian and tougher to carry. And I was surprised, and it's probably has something to do with the butt of it. This one seems a little more round, and it kind of just rocks back in my hand a little bit better than the Red Hawk. Red Hawk, I'm surprised shooting it, but I think it's because of this big hump and the web of my hand. The thing just comes straight back, and it's definitely got a big snap. But the Smith, for me, is a softer shooting revolver than the Red Hawk, which I'm kind of surprised, but shooting them side by side will definitely tell you that. So let's go ahead and talk about the big thing why people compare these two revolvers. That the Ruger is a stronger, heavier duty revolver than the Smith. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to accept that as fact. With this frame Ruger, they take this frame and they'll bore these. You can see from the holes here, there's a lot of meat left in that cylinder. They'll go ahead and they'll enlarge these holes and they'll put 454 Cossul in this, which is probably a good 30–40% more powerful than a 44 mag. And so you know this is a strong revolver when this will go up one level in power. The Smith & Wesson, the 44 mag, is the largest cartridge that an end-frame Smith will shoot. So this basically revolver size is maxed out, and then you have to go to the X-frame to shoot a 460 or a 500. But just looking at these revolvers, the Ruger looks heavier duty. I mean, the top of it, the frame, the crane of it, it's just a bigger, heavier built revolver, and there's just more to it, more steel there than the Smith. But the Smith feels better to me. So let's talk about triggers. Both of these revolvers have nice triggers. Ruger is a great trigger. The Smith's trigger is a little bit better. It's smoother. Also, I believe that this gun happens to have a trigger job, but I've shot other double action Smith and I own a 686. This is a good trigger, and it's not as good as the Smith. The Smith has a little bit better of a trigger. So let's go ahead and talk about price for both of these revolvers. These Smiths right there, the 629s, they're running right at about $900. So with tax, they're gonna get close to $1,000. And also with the Smiths, they make many different versions of the 629 and Model 29. That's a blued steel version of this, which is the original one. Smith & Wesson Model 629, the Dirty Harry's gun. But you can also order these through the Performance Center, and there's probably there's got to be 30 or 40 variations of 629s and 29s, you know, from the regular classic like this one to all the Performance Center versions. So there's many different options out there. With the Rugers, there's not as many. I mean, you can get the Ruger Super Red Hawk, and these right now have gone up in price. I remember when these revolvers used to sell for about $650. Now the cheapest I see these for is probably $850. So these basically are about the same price. And I remember when there used to be a price differential and the Smith was more expensive than the Ruger. Now they cost about the same. And there's not as many of these out there, different models of the Super Red Hawk. Basically, it's just barrel configurations, but the gun will be the same. And you can get other grips for these. I mean, this originally had a rubber and wood grip combination on this Red Hawk. But I took it off because the recoil was heavy from this revolver to put a full rubber grip on there to suck some of that recoil up. And that's an interesting thing to know. Even the Smith with a solid wood grip has less, recoils a little bit less than the Ruger with a full rubber grip on it, which kind of definitely surprises me. Is Buffalo bore. Buffalo makes that famous plus P plus run. I think it's a 340 grain hard cast projectile. And Buffalo Bore has it right on their website that, you know, all the guns it's safe to shoot in the Thompson Centers, Colt Anacondas, believe the Magnum Research revolvers, all the Ruger revolvers, and under asterisk it says the Smith & Wessons are not able to handle the power of that plus P plus 44 mag. So that's another thing that's going to go with the strength of a Ruger Super Red Hawk. So I'll go ahead and I'll summarize this up right now. If you're a hunter and you hunt and you're hunting something really large, I'm talking probably like moose, elk, and big ones, you know, like 1,000+ pounds, and you're hunting those with a 44 mag revolver, you're probably better off with the Red Hawk because you can shoot a 300 grain projectile out of this and it's quite safe and it'll do it all day long. And you can also mount a scope on this just a little easier than you can on the Smith. The Smith & Wesson is not made to shoot 300 grain projectiles. It's really designed around a 240 grain projectile. And you want to stick with max loads. This revolver, I would have no problem putting plus P 44 mags in this and just really launching really large projectiles out of this at very fast velocities. So for hunting the largest game, I think you're better off with the Ruger Super Red Hawk. But if you're not hunting the largest game out there, and let's say you're just hunting, you know, black bears, deer, you know, elk, maybe up to 700–800 pounds, this gun will suit you just fine. You know, if you're in the woods and you need bear protection, this is just fine. Only thing that this gun will shy away from is shooting those super max loads, those really heavy projectiles going really fast. You probably can shoot those out of this, but you're gonna beat this revolver up. That's the only downside to this revolver. The pluses of this revolver are, this revolver's a little lighter, it's easier to carry, it's machined better, and it has a better trigger. Also, this is a better looking gun. To me, this is a beautiful gun. I think the Ruger Super Red Hawk is cool, but this is a better looking gun. But that's your main difference right there with both these revolvers. You know, if you want to impress your friends with the biggest rounds, get the Ruger. And there's definitely people with, I like both Ruger and Smith & Wesson. I just think, to me, this, if I had to choose one revolver, I would choose the Smith over the Ruger Super Red Hawk. I own both of these revolvers. I don't plan on selling either one, but if I was stuck with one, I would take this one. And the only thing I would be giving up would be hunting that 1,200 pound elk or that 1,500 pound moose with this one. Wouldn't be the best calling, but that is such a small percentage of overall shooting what goes on in this country or the world, that doesn't concern me too much. But I will keep the Ruger Super Red Hawk just in case I do that. And I will have fun shooting both these revolvers, and also they both lead great to hand loading, and if you're lucky enough, buy both of them. But folks, that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to post them below, and I'll get back to them. And if you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. I'm going to do a little more shooting with these since I have both of them out and I've got them both dirty already. That was a direct hit. Good thing we looked up here. It looks like we have some Lithuanian girl here is lost in the woods. We'll see what she's up to. Wow, she looks very attractive too. It looks like I got my lucky day. Every once in a while, a blind squirrel finds a nut. Yeah, you want to say something for the camera, baby? Yeah. All right, so now that my girlfriend's out of the picture,